This is an example of using the anchor balloon technique to advance a subselector into the target vein. We previously have shown a video on how to use the anchor balloon technique for CS cannulation. Conceptually, it's very similar. And the idea is that by placing traction on a balloon, you can change the angle of approach, create a rail, and advance into something that you otherwise could not. So here we have a lateral situation where the lateral wall target branches drain to the middle cardiac vein and not the proximal CS as we would like them to. And you can see here that this is the middle cardiac vein here, and that the CS is occluded from a prior attempt at LV lead placement. So we used a standard vein selector here to engage the middle cardiac vein. So this is the standard vein selector attached to the contrast injection system, and we were able to advance a glide wire in a little bit, but not very far. So then we traded the glide wire for two 018 V18 control wires, and they're advanced through the vein selector and into the target vein to stabilize the vein selector. So there's one in, and now we have two in. And I think you'll learn that two smaller wires, in this case the 018 wires, deep in the vein provide a lot more support than a single large wire that can only be advanced a few centimeters. So we've stabilized the vein selector, and we injected contrast through the vein selector to determine what things look like. And you can see there's a branch here, and then this is the lateral wall branch that we're interested in putting the lead in. However, despite having the vein selector stabilized and using it as a rail, we weren't able to advance the subselector over the vein selector, which is what you can usually do. You can usually advance this subselector over the vein selector into the branch, but in this case that wasn't possible. So we did a Hail Mary. That is, we attempted to just advance a lead over one of these wires with the subselector just inside the middle cardiac vein, but that was unsuccessful. So the final option is to advance a balloon over the remaining wire and inflate the balloon and use it as an anchor. So here we use a 3 millimeter by 30 millimeter balloon, is advanced over the remaining 018 wire and inflated just to 5 atmospheres. And how high we inflate it is sort of a dealer's choice. It's never really quite clear. And you can see how long this balloon is. And here's the tip marker and here's the tail marker. This just happened to be the only balloon that we could find that went over an 018 wire at the time. Okay, so we had the balloon inflated, and we're trying to advance the renal subselector, but it won't advance. And that's because we're not putting enough traction on the balloon. You see how the approach of the subselector is very flat here, which means that we don't have enough traction on the balloon just yet. So the angle of approach indicates that there's not enough traction on the balloon. So with proper traction, this subselector would be lifted up like this. It'd be putting traction on the balloon, which would change the angle of approach so that the subselector would approach the target vein more directly. And so when we put enough traction on the balloon, we're able to advance. And so this is what it looks like. Here we're putting traction on the balloon, and here this is the renal LVI subselector. So by placing proper traction on the balloon, the renal LVI subselector can be advanced into the target branch. So you got to make sure you have enough tension on this that you've straightened out the angle of approach. and now we have succeeded in getting the subselector into the branch, and you can see that we've actually pulled the balloon back a little bit with the traction. We could have put more. We could have inflated the balloon to a higher pressure and inflated the entire balloon if we needed to, but we had enough traction to get it in. And then from there, once we had the renal LVI subselector in the vein, the lead is readily advanced over the .018 wire. Now you'll notice this is a Medtronic lead, and only Medtronic leads will advance over a .018 wire. And that fact can actually be very helpful in some cases. The difference between an 014 and an 018 wire can be quite dramatic in terms of the support that it provides. So I hope you find this useful. Any questions, you can contact me for more information, and we do training programs regularly. Thanks.